All right, let's continue on with our modeling. We've got a nice looking hood. We got the front bumper looking pretty good, and let's go ahead and start working on this little black area right here underneath the headlights, which I can zoom in and show to you. There it is. So you'll notice it's just a little panel that's pretty much level with everything else. Let's go ahead and start off with our Create Polygon tool. In fact, let's do something a little bit unorthodox. And this is kind of optional. You don't really have to come along with me while I do this. I'm going to start taking out parts of the UI on purpose to force myself, well, one, to get a bigger viewport, because, you know, we are modeling and all that.
Right.
I'll leave this on if for no other reason than to remind me about construction history, which on this object is quite vast, and I need to delete.
Yeah.
But let's see, we don't really need... this. I'll leave the status line up anyways, because I do use it from time to time. I can hold down the space bar and go into the hotbox, and we can switch off pane menu bars, which clears that out. And if you really want to be hardcore, you can also switch off the main menu bar, and now all you've got is just a little bit of a channel box status line, and that's it. In fact, we can take our channel box and squash it down quite a bit. So there you go. Pretty much all you have now is one massive viewport, which is very nice for modeling. Just remember, all of your tools, you can hold down Shift, right mouse, and really anything you need for polygon modeling is going to be found in here somewhere.
Right, right.
Let's take just a second, though, and let's see. We want to delete history, so we can select all of these objects. Hold down the space bar. We can go to Edit, Delete by Type, History from the hotbox, so another shortcut there. And we'll try to do this with as little UI as possible, just kind of as a practice. It's also really nice if you only have one monitor and you want to use as much of that for a viewport as you possibly can. So let's see here. Let's Shift, right mouse, grab the Create Polygon tool, and let's start off modeling. So I just curve snapped a point over here to this curve, and let's see if I can curve snap another one. That didn't quite make it, which is fine because I can just hit backspace, and I should be able to point snap right over here to this polygon point, and that should be just fine in this particular case. In fact, if I hit 4, we can point snap here, then curve snap up here. So using all those multiple snaps. And there we go. There's the first part of this object. Let's go ahead and now we'll go over to the Append to Polygon tool. So notice again, that's just Shift right mouse. Use them to your advantage. And add in a couple of points, and there we go. There's really the bulk of this already modeled in for us. Let's go ahead and grab edges. And of course, we'll grab all of these surrounding edges. And we need to extrude these guys. So we hold down Shift, right mouse. And what do we have? Extrude edge. I knew it was in there somewhere. And we'll just pull all of these down just a bit, just like we do everything else for the time being. And shade up. F8 a couple of times. And there we go. Now, of course, we can come in here and hit Control-tilde and switch that over to a smooth proxy. So a little bit too smooth.
Looks kind of funky.
Yeah, so we're going to need to come in here and adjust some of those edges with some edge creasing. This is also in our marking menu. So let's grab the Poly Crease tool and middle mouse drag to the right and switch over. Now, again, we get some of that polygon darkening. Don't worry about that at the moment, just as a reminder. We can boost up our resolution on that, make some of that go away. But on a shape this simple, you probably won't need really high resolution. So watch out for that. Like, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
And so we'll leave it kind of down for now. We're going to make a separate pass later on after the whole car is modeled in, where we'll go in, we'll decide which edges should be beveled and things like that. Right now, we're just getting the basic geometry in place. So let's go ahead and deselect this. Shift right mouse, and we'll grab the Create Polygon tool again. Let's go ahead and show wireframe just so I can kind of see where we are, where we're going with this. And let's start laying down some more points. Now, I'm going to do this a little bit differently this time, just for the fun of it. We'll go ahead and curve snap this first point, and I'll point snap the second point down here. Now, did that go where I wanted it to? Yes, it looked like it did. We'll curve snap down here, and then we'll curve snap all the way up here. So we have this one massive polygon, which clearly doesn't have the detail that we're looking for.
Right.
Now, I'd like to keep my topology consistent throughout the model. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me go ahead and switch this back down to the low-resolution proxy mesh. You'll notice we have one split kind of going through here. We have one split going through here. I'm going to try to keep that consistent as best I can except where rounding doesn't allow me to. Like if I need to make this rounder, of course I'll need more edges.
Right.
But we've got our single panel here. Let's go ahead and grab our split polygon tool.
Now, the consistency that you want, is there any particular reason that you want to keep that in there like that?
Personal preference, really.
Okay.
It will, later on, once I switch over to smooth mesh, if the topology lines up, then it's going to be more likely that my smooth objects will line up as well. So I won't get like differences in elevation, differences in rounding. And I may need to bend the rules a little bit. That happens sometimes. And let's go ahead and click over like so. I'll just right mouse to end that tool. And I'll split straight across like so. And then we can just start grabbing these vertices and start making adjustments. So we can curve snap this up a bit, curve snap this over. Of course, this one should probably be pulled out from the surface to create some rounding.
Right.
And we can point snap this over here. Try to keep all of these at the same elevation. Like, let's see over here. It looks like we've got a couple of different heights in place. So we'll need to really keep an eye on that. And we do. Let's go ahead and make sure that everybody stays level. What I'll do is I'll just point snap this vertex right over here. Let's go back to vertices. I'll grab this vertex by itself. Notice how I'm constantly shifting between my different view modes.
Right.
And we can grab this, and we'll snap him up here so he's in line, like so. Probably pull that up just a little more for just a bit more rounding. And until I see the need for additional tweaks, I think that's going to do just fine. Let me go ahead and grab the surrounding edges. And let's extrude these edges downward. Now, here's kind of something that one or two of you might be curious about. You'll notice where some of these panels, as we extrude down, are passing through one another, and whether or not that's a problem. Yes and no. I mean, it's a problem if you ever anticipate anybody being able to see that. So, we're going to have a panel that fits all the way in here. If it's completely buried and nobody's ever going to see it, then it's not really a problem, though if you're like a perfectionist or a purist, you may want to go in there and make sure that you kind of separate those from one another. In the end, though, it's not really going to make all that much of a difference unless there's ever a way that you can see inside your model. In this case, I'm going to separate them just a little bit because later on this is just going to be a lens over the inner workings of our headlight, which we'll be creating later on down the road. In fact, there's a pretty good chance we didn't even really need those extruded edges. We'll find that out later. Right now, I'll just kind of keep on creating. Now, I did notice that there is some flattening that needs to take place here on the outer edge of the wheel well as we get here to the back of the bumper. And you can see that a little bit over here. It's not super apparent unless you really kind of study how the colors are shifting, but there is sort of a flattened band here around here. If you dig through some of the other photos, it becomes more apparent in some than it is in others. So what I'm going to do is grab my split polygon tool. Let me go ahead and go back to object mode, make that a little easier to grab. And let's make a split. We'll go ahead and start it all the way up here. And I'll just make it all the way down this object, like so. I'll just continue to split all the way through so everything stays neatly in quads. And we'll go ahead and continue it around the up underside as well. Now I'm going to pull some of these edges away because some of these vertices are really close to one another. So I'll kind of space things out a little bit, start making minor adjustments to that topology. And now all I'm really going to do is take these new vertices that I've created and use them to form a ring around the wheel well. And then I'll snap them in X so that they're in line with kind of their next door neighbor in this direction. So that should create some nice flattening for us. And these will just pull out a little gently because I don't think it's all that apparent once you get down to the bottom of the car. And we'll pull this one out like so. Probably clean that up a little bit. Now because I've done that, I should end up with some nasty denting up here. You can kind of see how the car now looks like it dents in right there, which is not the case in the real car. So now we need to go through and tweak out all of these vertices. Tweaking is going to be key here, whether you really enjoy doing it or not. I will say this, though. If you find yourself getting really frustrated while you're tweaking, or you start to lose patience with yourself, or get irritated when you have to sit here for hours and pull on a few vertices, it is possible that modeling is not your thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you that you can't be a modeler. I'm not going to tell you to find a new profession or give up modeling at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that maybe it's not your specialty. Because I've worked on a lot of models, and all of my best models have been the result of hours and hours. And I know, I've probably brought that up already several times in this class, but...
And usually the best, the fun part is cleanup.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't somehow enjoy doing this, then, again, modeling just might not be your bag. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and switch over to a smooth version, just kind of see how that's looking.
Not bad.
Little bit of a denting in here, so we can just kind of take a closer look, and you can kind of see how the edges dent inward if you sight down it. Again, use that rifle technique where you aim right down that edge, and it'll become really apparent where you have problems. I love that technique. Tug this out a little bit. Also remember, new to Maya 7, you have those arrow keys you can use to switch between vertices. I can't tell you how convenient that is. And I'm sure we have a little bit of denting taking place here. Use that tilde key to jump back and forth. Is it pronounced tilde or tilde?
I've always heard it was tilde.
Tilde, I don't know.
Yeah. The only reason I know that because we had a girl that was in her class, and she named her cat Tilda because she was a coder.
A geek.
Yeah, coder geek.
Yeah, I was going to say, she can't really be anything but a geek at that point.
I love you, Jen.
Never met you, Jen. I'm sure you're sweet, but you're a geek. Okay, so let's see. That's looking a lot better. Maybe a little bit of tweaking, pulling should take place up in here, but I'll kind of give a more detailed tweaking pass a little bit later once we have more of the car in place, like when I see the bumper falling in flush with the fender and whatnot. So let's see, on that note, it's probably not a bad time to go ahead and start plugging away at the old fender. So, let's see, where to begin? That's always the question when you start modeling like this. Like, where do I get started? What I'm going to do is I have this little ring that goes around the wheel well. We're going to start off by creating some polygons in there. So let's shift right mouse, and let's see, do I have the create polygon tool? Deselect everything. There we go. Remember, that marking menu changes based on what you have selected. So
right, yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, because that'll bite you.
Yeah, it can. We'll start off with a point here. Now, does that curve just dance all the way down here? Yes, it does. So I'll set it right on top, and then I may need to go in and make minor tweaks a little bit later. Place another one straight over, and then U, and U, and press Enter. All right, not bad. Now, let's shift right mouse, and we have the append to polygon tool, so we'll click, hold down C, and so on. And I'm just going to follow this all the way around the wheel well. Play that over here in perspective, just because it looks so nice. Oh, and by the by, if you are working in the same manner that I have, and you've got rid of your UI and things like that, good for you, because that's good practice.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest with you, when I'm working on stuff on my own, I typically don't work this way, mostly because I don't have to. I run a dual monitor system, which I highly recommend for those of you who are like hardcore into using Maya for any reason, for modeling, for animation.
Yeah. If it's not a hobby.
Yeah, if it's anything more than just playing around on your computer, having 2 separate monitors is a total addiction. If you've got 3 monitors, like you're running a Parhelia card or something, good for you. Don't rub it in my face.
Do you think you're better than me?
What do you think? Yeah, that's right. You talking to me?
Yeah, I remember when we took one of your monitors away that one time, and you got confused. And
yeah,
it was sad.
Actually, it's taken a while to get used to this again.
Just the one monitor?
Yeah, which I had to do for recording because you guys can't capture both monitors. Or you guys being us. Of course.
Yeah, I was like, you guys?
Yeah,
it's our fault.
Guys. All right, so again, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again.
That's what's lovely about 3D.
Yeah.
Repetitive. But it's always nice to see the end result.
Oh, yeah. And that's, I think that's probably the biggest area that I have to teach new modelers if they're just getting into it hardcore.
Immediate results is what they want.
Well, immediate results you'll almost never get.
Right.
Because, you start modeling and, maybe you're box modeling. So what you're modeling ends up looking a lot like a box for a while.
Yeah.
And you got to be patient with yourself. All right, so we've gone all the way around the wheel well, created our little flattened disc. That'll be nice and important as we continue to build across here. Now, here's the thing. We have this bit of curvature, this nice fender, which is going to run all the way through here. But you'll notice we have this big flat area where we don't have any curves. We can't really tell what the curvature is doing. So we're going to supplement our curve network a little bit. Yes, I told you the curve network is done, and it is done. But as we start placing polygons in here, it would be nice if we had a few guide curves that we could snap to, and we don't really have those right now. So what I'm going to do is bring up my hotbox for just a minute. We can go to Show, and I'm going to switch off polygons. So all we have is curves again. And let's go ahead and go over to Create. Let's grab we can probably do it with the EP Curve tool and make some single span curves. But I'm going to curve snap from the corner of the headlight. Let's go out here to the corner of the fender, here where it kind of meets at the door blind spot. Press Enter. And let's grab some CVs. Now, it's a good idea to come in here and take a look at your actual imagery.
Yeah.
Make sure that things are lining up the way they need to. So you can kind of see how we slope upward just a little bit, then we dive back down to the corner of the headlight. Let's make sure that this curve simulates that as well. We'll go ahead and press 3.
Get that slight ridge going.
Yeah. Maybe that's a little bit too pronounced. Because it's subtle, but it's there. Something kind of like so. I'll pull it out just a little bit.
That's another thing about having a curved network is that go back and tweak it on this before you start doing it with polygons.
Yeah, you're going to have fewer points to deal with. You can simulate the curvature much more easily. There's just a lot of really good reasons to get your curvature in right now, or at least get a representation of your curvature in place.
Yeah.
Like even just having this curve is going to make so much of a difference as we start to snap in more polygons.
Very good visualization.
And I'm going to put in one more. I don't know whether or not I'm going to use it that much, but I'll put in a curve that goes between these corners, like so. And again, you kind of have to pretend that the car is already there, you know? This is something you almost kind of have to do in your head. Because remember, as kitschy and corny as it sounds, the greatest tool in 3D is you, not Maya.
Ooh, you are wise.
Oh, yes. I know, that's like really Yoda sounding and all that, but that's the way it is.
It's like if Spock and Yoda, teamed up.
No, back off now.
There's a lot of people angry at me right now.
Yeah, there are. The Trekkies and the Star Wars fans are about to go to war. It's all because of you.
They'll unite to kill me.
Yeah. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We can probably create the remaining curvature just by pulling a few polygon vertices. So I'm willing to go with that. Let's go ahead and go back to Show, switch polygons back on. Oh yeah, I think that'll help out quite a bit. Now, from here, where to, he said knowingly. Let's see, I think right now, if I were to append from this polygon object using this curve a lot, I might, well, okay. See, I don't want to end up with a triangle right here. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's go ahead and grab the append to polygon tool. Again, just as a reminder, that's just more of that shift right mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll curve snap one point here, and then let's go ahead and curve snap a second point out here. Press enter. And it looks already like I could use some editing there, because it looks like it went to the NURBS curve, and I'd actually kind of like it to be on the polygon edge at this point. Also notice how we've got this gap starting to form between our two panels. We don't really want that gap to be all of that apparent right now. So we'll close that in just a bit. And let's see, I can probably point snap this over here and just create a little bit of a gap. Just the tiniest of gaps for the time being. We may need to go back in there later on and close that ourselves, which will be fine. Now, here we go. We have some topology over here. Notice how the topology is kind of curving inward here on this piece. I'm going to adjust that a little bit. I'm going to pull that back so it kind of starts to sweep backwards. We'll just straighten this out a little bit. Now, because I moved arbitrarily using the white square in the middle, it's going to be a good idea to go in and just make a few more tweaks. Make sure I didn't pull things too out of whack.
Especially if you move in perspective like that.
Yeah. Which, and I've heard both sides of the story. I've heard people demand, if ever you move something in perspective, you're just asking for trouble.
Right.
I find that, that's not really the case. It all depends on how careful you are while you're moving.
Right.
If you take your time, you can really make anything work.
If you just grab it and start dragging all over the place, then yeah, you're going to have problems.
One of my favorite techniques, if you have to move in perspective, is put your camera perpendicular to the motion you need. Mm-hmm. So pretend like you're looking, like here in this example, I need to move this vertex. Not quite in the z-axis, mostly in z, a little bit in negative x.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is move the camera so I'm looking exactly perpendicularly to that motion, and then if I just grab and slide to the left in this case, I get really close.
Yeah.
I'll still require some tweaking, but I've got a pretty good start on where I'm going. Now notice I'm trying to follow that topology as closely as I can. I may need to go back in here and add another edge later on. I'm not entirely sure at this moment. So I'm just kind of building up slowly. In fact, maybe we'll pull this up a little higher, pull it out a little more so it kind of falls in with that curve that I created a minute ago.
Right.
And let's go back and keep on appending. And looks like I might need to snap a point over here, and then we can click on that edge, and there we go. So I'm thinking I'm kind of wandering out a little bit too far, because what I'd like is kind of a secondary ring. So, we got this first ring of edges.
Right.
I'd like another, loop, I guess, is more accurate. But then we're going to have another loop that flows around through here and then starts to run down the side of the fender. Like
okay, I see what you're saying, yeah.
In fact, just as a precursor, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create the rest of the loop all the way out to about here where we start to pull away, and you'll be able to see a little more clearly what I'm talking about. So let's see, the fastest way to do this would likely be to grab probably just out to here for the time being.
Right.
And I'll shift right mouse, and let's go ahead and just extrude these edges. I'll pull them out a little bit arbitrarily, and then we'll just go into the vertex level and start tweaking and cleaning. Snap that. Lots of curve snapping. Looks like I could probably be a good idea to grab this curve and hit 3 on it so we can see its true curvature. If you ever look and you notice you're trying to curve snap and you're not quite hitting that curve, remember to hit the 3 key.
Yeah.
All right. So that was really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go ahead and grab our append tool again. And we'll go here, then I'll curve snap up here like so. And notice how we're starting to kind of move along this interesting piece of curvature. So we have to start planning ahead as to what our topology is going to be doing as we come around the corner here.
Right.
So I'll move back over here to where I was. And let's go back to clicking here. So there's one. Now, what I'm going to do in this case is kind of interesting. I'm going to curve snap a vertex up here just because I can't curve snap this into the distance. It probably won't create a polygon if I do that. So I'll press Enter, then I'll immediately grab this vertex and pull it down a little bit. And there is going to be some serious tweaking involved. So remember, you got to kind of pretend in your head that the car is already there. If you want to double check with your image planes, that's fine. I would be a little bit skeptical as to how much information you're going to pull. Could be quite a bit, could be just a little bit. You got to kind of look at this point in the front view, pretend it's on the surface in the front view, then pretend it's on the surface in the side view and move accordingly.
Right.
In most cases, what I will tend to do, especially on a car like this, on vehicles, is if at all possible, I will just kind of rotate around my curve network because you're going to get a nice implicit suggestion of where those surfaces are going to be. And I'll get things moved as closely as I can and then go back and tweak later. And for me, personally, that seems to work a little bit better, a little bit smoother. I understand what the surfaces are doing. But if you find yourself wanting to go back and forth to the front and side views, that's awesome. Go for it.
Yeah, I do that a bit myself.
Yeah.
Jump back and forth between all the views.
Indeed. Okay, and we'll go ahead and create one more piece here. I think what I find in a lot of cases, and you gotta be a little bit careful on how you take this because I don't mean this in the way that some people might take it. Those who have a really good sense of what a particular object looks like in 3D will end up working a lot in the perspective views.
Right.
Because they've already got that image locked into their head really well. If it's something that you're not sure how it looks, then you might find yourself switching back and forth between your perspective views quite a bit more. That's just something I've noticed.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, if you have, the physical object in front of you that you need to model,
right,
then it's very helpful. But if you're just working from flat planes, then yeah, you're going to have to start jumping back and forth because you don't have a good idea what it's going to be like in 3D.
Exactly. And as we mentioned earlier, I do have like the die-cast metal car sitting here next to me, which is a really nice representation.
Oh yeah.
I've got all of these pictures to look at, and I know I said this earlier, but honestly, if you got to model something that's a real-world object, and you can, without blowing too much money, get your hands on any kind of representation of it, like, a toy car for something you're going to model, or a toy plane or whatever, go ahead and invest in it, especially if it's like an important project.
Yeah.
It'll make your life so much easier, because you can look at it and go, oh, that's how they did it. So notice I'll just connect across there.
Right.
Now, we've got some tweaking to do, just a little bit, but I'm going to kind of save that until I get a little more of this surface into place, and then I can start adjusting, knowing where the surface is going to be. For the time being, though, I do need to delete my history, so let's do Edit, Delete by Type, History, and for now, I think that's going to wrap up for this video.
All right.
So thanks a lot.